Dolphins fans, what's going on today? It is Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network. Back to preview our Week 16 game at home, the home finale against the San Francisco 49ers. A weird feeling into this game. You're going to get that vibe from me, I think, a lot in this video. It's just the last couple of years where it's been competing for definitely like playoff wildcard spots, even higher aspirations than that. Go back to last year before things faded. It was like the AFC East was in our hands. A potential bid for the number 1 seed has been in our hands. And now we fast forward to this year and we see things just kind of implode and not have that steady improvement where we talk about finally not only just getting to the playoffs, but getting a win and now taking that step back. It just kind of feels like these last 3 weeks, when you look at the playoff picture, which we're going to do here in a second, it just feels like we're kind of going through the motions. I don't want it to feel that way. I'm not going to try to give all those vibes. That's just kind of how our current situation is, especially off of what we've been able to do the 2 years before this. We'll jump into everything in here in just a second, Dolphins fans. Before we do, though, I want to hear from you. You got the same vibes? How do you feel not only about this game, but about the rest of the season? And if you put the playoffs aside, what kind of moves would you like to see, like, right away in the offseason? Is it a coach? Is it a GM? Is it personnel stuff, player personnel? Go ahead, drop your thoughts in the comments. But I do want to talk a little bit about that playoff picture because, like I said, it's bleak. It's very bleak, especially after what we saw. I'm recording this on Friday. What we saw Thursday, what we can expect to see Saturday and Sunday. It's not looking good. It's Week 16. We already have 3 divisions clinched. I don't know if the NFL wanted it this way. It's almost like, I don't want to say anticlimactic because we're still jostling for a few things here, but to already have 3 divisions clinched seems a little bit crazy. The only one that's not is the AFC North, and that's between the Steelers and the Ravens. But the Steelers have at least clinched a spot in the playoffs. So if the Ravens ended up overtaking them from the division, obviously both of them are already getting in as well. So the remaining teams ahead of the Dolphins, you get both the Chargers and the Broncos at 9-6, and then the Colts are 6-8. So not only are we 2.5 games back behind the Broncos, who are currently in that 7 seed for that final wild card spot with just 3 games remaining, but we're also behind Indy in the tiebreaker because of the fact that we failed to beat them when we had our head-to-head matchup with them when we were still without Tua Tagovailoa. So unfortunately, the clearest path to the playoffs is still very muddy. It's very unlikely. We are home against the 49ers, and we got 2 road games to wrap it up against the Browns and the Jets. The Chargers, 2 games left, road against the Patriots and the Raiders. I don't necessarily see them losing those 2. Broncos are at the Bengals, and then they're home against the Chiefs. I would say that they have the most difficult schedule remaining of these teams that we're discussing. And then the Colts are home against the Titans, at the New York Giants, home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They should realistically win all those 3. So with that said, I'm sticking with exactly what I said in last week's recap video, which was we're not making the playoffs, and there's no other way to describe this season other than the word disappointing. So with that, like I said, kind of the vibe I'm giving off here, I'm trying not to be too negative. We've entered that strange part of the season, whereas Dolphins fans, we want to see our team do good. We want to see win. We want our team to be competitive. But with that, you're at that point where basically any win the rest of the way, since we're likely not making the playoffs, is just causing you to slide further down that draft order. Now, I will say that not everything is about having an early pick. There's no guarantee that comes with selecting a guy in the top 10 versus picking a guy between like 15 and 20. But if you do pick in the top 10 versus 15 and 20, you've got that many more guys in your draft pool that are available to you. And if you do a good job scouting these guys, you got a better chance of hitting one of those top tier prospects. So that's actually one of the things as we transition here that I'm going to have my eye on in this game and kind of throughout the rest of the season. Let me get that off your screen here and we will continue on. Because Dolphins fans, who comes to play? Do we see some of these players maybe kind of taking some plays off, not giving 100%? Do we see the coaching staff maybe see what we have in some of these younger guys, take some of the snaps away from some of the veterans, give them to some of these younger guys? Already seen the reports come out about Miami potentially releasing a guy like Calais Campbell so he can play with a contender. I have heard from my connection as well. That's very well within the realm of possibilities. They want to do right by Calais Campbell. He wants to get a ring. That may be a thing that ends up happening. But simply keeping an eye on these guys, who's getting the snaps, it feels intriguing to me if we're looking for something to watch for in this game. Now, I don't necessarily think we're going to see anything too drastic since we are, yes, still mathematically alive in the playoff race. But this point is more so not only for this game, but for the rest of the season as well. All right. One thing that I think we can all agree on is that we need to see an actual NFL offense on Sunday. Not what we saw last week against the Texans. Can Tua Tagovailoa, can this Dolphins offense, how do we respond after turning the ball over, 4 times last week, scoring 12 points in a gotta-have-it, must-win game? Like I said, I know winning on Sunday, even if we look good in the process on Sunday, that doesn't go anywhere to kill any narratives, which I think we can all agree that these narratives have become kind of truths, right? It's kind of we got to face that fact. But even if we look good in the process, where I was going with this, it doesn't take that loss to the Texans out of the way. You needed to do this last week. You needed to look good in the process last week. I say that thinking that I don't think any of us also want to see that this team, why I think we should play good in this game. None of us want to see this team just go into shambles. We don't want to see them roll over, turn into a turnover machine like we were last week over the final 3 weeks of the season, even if these games end up being quote unquote meaningless. So, hey, here's an idea. Let's protect Tua. Let's see Tua and Tyreek get back on the same page after having those 3 interceptions last week. Let's get back to playing turnover-free football. All right, one other thing I wanted to touch on as well, because I got some recent questions, some comments as well about the likes of like a Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel. So I wanted to talk about them today as well. I'm going to start with my personal opinion on these guys. I personally think that we should keep Mike McDaniel at head coach, but I think we should probably try to find a new general manager. And I want to keep Mike McDaniel for a couple of reasons. I truly think that he's shown that he can provide this team with a potent offense when things can click, when people are heavy. Like I said, he's not flawless. There are some things that need to change, but he has shown that ability. Now, those changes that I kind of referred to, number one, first and foremost, keep him as head coach, give someone else the play calling duties. I think that's first and foremost what we can do. He's shown that he can draw up good plays, but the idea of calling them at the right time and just completely going off your rocker sometimes with these play calls, he's also shown the ability to do that. So turn that play caller, but then also what steps can he take that schematically get the play in a little bit earlier? We've seen this now with Tua, where by the time he gets the play call, gets up to the line of scrimmage, we do all of our motion. We are in a hurry to snap that ball. If we can change up schematically how we're doing these things, and Tua has that freedom at the line of scrimmage to get out of a bad play, make a change, be able to get out of a bad play and turn it into a successful play, that's those little things that I think we can do if maybe we have a little bit different of a direction in regards to the play calling and the overall schematics in regards to this team. But I would also say, I have one last note here. We have a guy, Mike McDaniel is a player, he's a player's coach. I'll give him that. He's really not as strict as he probably should be. He's a coach that players, not only here, but free agents want to play for. He has shown that this offense can be tops in the league. Tua Tagovailoa can be an MVP candidate with this team. But like I said, when things are clicking, so he's not flawless. I get that. I've rambled long enough. As for the GM spot, my personal thought is we need a new face. We need a new strategy at this position compared to what Chris Grier has kind of shown and proven to be over the time. I'm talking about things that I think you all agree with. Emphasis on building the trenches. Build a more physical team that isn't outmatched simply because it gets cold and windy out. I think Chris Grier has done some nice things for this team. I don't think he's the only one to blame for these recent shortcomings, these underachieving seasons. But I do, however, think a change needs to be made. So I did ask my connection with the team about whether or not Chris Grier survives this. That's the way I worded it. He informed me that Stephen Ross and Tom Garfinkel are divided on this decision at the moment. They truly, those guys, the front office guys, they want to see how these final 3 games shake out. So based on what I am being told, it doesn't sound like any decision is imminent. There's not been like a predetermined situation at this point in time, but rather these next 3 games are super important and will play a large role regarding the future of this team from a front office perspective. I do want to touch on the injury report real quick. Like I said, it's not the most, doesn't feel like the world's most important game, but we are here still to preview the game. So there are some injury notes here that are worth pointing out. Tyreek Hill got in a limited practice session on Friday, noted for a wrist and then personal reasons. And why that's I haven't checked in on this. I truly think Tyreek's going to end up going. But with Jalen Waddle being listed as doubtful, with cutting Odell Beckham Jr., a week or 2 ago, with losing Grant DuBose to the IR as well, we've gotten real thin, real fast at this position. So yeah, hopefully Tyreek is able to go. Also, probably some of the most important injuries on this list, the tackle position. Once again, we talked about protecting Tua Tagovailoa, right? Teron Armstead, Kendall Lamb, once again, both listed as questionable. So we'll see if either of those guys ends up being healthy enough to go on Sunday. Or are we going to be back to what we saw with the game against the Texans, where it's not Kendall Lamb, where it's Jackson Carman at right tackle, and then it's the rookie Patrick Paul at left tackle. So keep an eye on that as well. I am going to give a prediction. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but I am going to go with a 3-point win for our Miami Dolphins. Look, we're at home. The 49ers are just as banged up, if not more banged up than us. Isaac Guerrero, I think he just got ruled out of this one as well. They're on what? Running back like 5 at this point in time. This team has felt that they have gone through it on the injuries. And like I said, our players, the coaches, front office members, these jobs are on the line over these last 3 weeks. So I don't necessarily think we're just going to roll over and die over these last 3 weeks. So keep an eye on that. Like I said, I kept it kind of short there because in the end, what is this game going to matter? I think it's more so for jobs than win-loss outcome. But like I said, drop your thoughts, not only on this game, but anything that you'd like to see over the course of the remainder of the regular season, some early off-season stuff. It's a safe zone down there, Dolphins fans, in that comments section. Go ahead and drop your thoughts in there. Unsure of when I will be back with my next video with the holidays. I got one of my kids' birthdays coming up here as well. Who knows? It's a tricky time of the year right now, Dolphins fans. But stay tuned. We will be back at some point to unpack everything that we saw on Sunday and then what we can look forward to here over the final 2 weeks of the season. I will end it there, Miami Dolphins fans. But until next time, fins up.